This is MacroView Television, and welcome to another edition of the Taiwan Outlook, the program that lets you see the different faces and hear the different voices of Taiwan. I'm your host, Wu Ruiguo. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always enjoyed stamp collecting as a hobby. Over the years, I've stopped doing it. However, I've never lost interest in exploring a country's past, present, and the future through postal stamps. And on today's program, we're delighted to have Dr. Huang who's an assistant professor of art history at the Tainan National University of the Arts, to be our special guest to talk about a country's development and also postal stamps. Welcome to the program, Professor Huang.
Hello, really nice to be here to share my interests with all the audience in the world.
Yes. Well, Professor Huang, you know, as I said at the beginning, ever since I was a little kid, I've enjoyed stamp collecting.
Yes.
And it was a very important hobby for me. But over the years, I stopped doing it. However, I never lost interest in looking at postal stamps, because it tells you so much about a country's history, its people, its government, and its culture. And let me ask you the same question.
Yes.
When did you first start developing an interest in postal stamps?
Just like everybody else in the world, maybe. I started to collect stamps when I was like 7, 8 years old in an elementary school.
Yes.
And, people just compete who can collect the most postage stamps.
Yes.
And it's like a desire to fulfill the completeness.
Okay.
And after that, just like Dr. Wu, I stopped collecting. And until when I doing my research in master degree, it's about the statue of the great man, so-called great man, Chiang Kai-shek and Dr. Sun Yat-sen.
Yes.
And I start to revisit all these images. And I found, wow, they are very, very political. And they reflect a whole history of the Republic of China.
Of course.
And so that became my PhD subject.
Okay.
Right.
So you wrote it on stamp collecting and the history of the Republic of China through stamps.
Yes. Actually, in my PhD thesis, I compare Republic of China and the People's Republic China from 1949 to 79. All these thousands of images, they compete.
All right.
National identity, ideology, something.
Okay. So besides history,
Yes.
was there any other reason that attracted you to this tiny piece of paper?
Yes, of course. I look at all these, it's hard to imagine people can draw such a miniature. As you can see, the small, beautiful images within inches. But actually, they paint in a huge, larger images than those postage stamps.
Yeah. So so that little piece of paper really was attractive to you. And let me ask you, Dr. Huang.
Yes.
Mostly, we see the stamps come in rectangle shape.
Yeah.
And are there any other countries that regularly publish different shapes and different sizes of stamps?
Actually, there are many kinds of
stamps.
Many kinds. Yes.
Okay.
Like rectangular is the most common, as you can see.
Most popular.
Yes, and triangle.
Okay.
You can find triangle, or
some of them square.
Square.
Yes.
Or oval.
Okay.
Or even round.
Okay, round shape.
And the material varies.
Okay.
Like cloth.
Okay.
Metal. Or even wood.
Okay.
But actually, the International Philatelic Society Association, or the international organization, they don't like this kind of postage stamps in too many different shapes, because they don't see it as a daily use.
Okay.
And it's even forbidden in the 1970s.
Okay.
They will make a list which is the bad postage stamps in the world, only for the purpose of commerce.
Okay. But Dr. Huang, as we know, we can learn so much about the country's history, people, culture, through postal stamps. And what is the relevance, as you have studied the subject in a very serious academic manner?
Yeah.
What is the relevance between national development and postal stamps?
People, the government try to influence people in various ways.
Okay.
Postage stamps is a way that is a free propaganda. Okay. Actually, the government didn't have to persuade people to buy it.
No.
People just buy it because
Yes.
they have to use it to write mails, to send parcels to their friends. And they buy the free propaganda.
Okay.
So it's a bargain for the government.
Okay.
And the government, there are various types or themes in postage stamps, such as political themes, historical, cultural or natural subjects. So the people will receive all these messages designed or created by the government. They will learn something about, or actually they will learn something about things designed, particularly designed by the government.
Okay.
Ideology or national identity.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a little bit about the history of our, postal stamps in the Republic of China.
Yes.
When was the first postal stamp, made available to the public? That was back in 1912, I would suppose.
1912, yes.
Yeah,
But
okay.
before that, actually, the Qing dynasty they had already released the postage stamp.
Okay.
And most of the designer or the director of the customs are foreigners.
Okay.
Most of them are either English or French.
Okay.
Some of them are Italian.
Okay.
So you can see in the late 19th century, the imperialists, they try to compete within the Chinese political circle.
Okay.
So, but the English won these games.
Okay.
So most of the postage stamps are designed by British people.
Okay. But as we know that this year is the Republican year 100.
Yes.
This is our centennial year.
Yeah.
Over the years, who were some of the more important figures, whether it's politicians or our founding father, or the business people, or people who have done great deeds to the society, that have appeared on the cover of ROC stamps?
It's not hard to imagine. Actually, there's no particular people in the Qing dynasty. Okay, so after 1912,
yes,
the first two figures on postage stamps are Sun Yat-sen, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, and Yuan Shikai.
Ah, yes, the first president of the Republic.
As you can see, these two postage stamps, if you compare these two postage stamps, although their portraits are in the center of the postage stamps, but the planes, beside them are different.
Yes.
Because Yuan Shikai is based on the from the north.
Of course.
So it's wheat.
Okay.
But Dr. Sun Yat-sen, he's accompanied by two rice.
Yes. Okay.
So it's very, very different.
Okay,
and
because the regions they came from were different.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can imagine or foresee the future of the warlord period.
Okay.
After in the 1930, before 1928.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. But let me ask you though. I mean, ever since the founding of the Republic, we actually went through a number of wars and conflicts inside of China.
Yes.
Of course, there was the Northern Expedition,
Yes.
北伐, and then later on, of course, the 8-year war of resistance against the Japanese invasions. The postal stamps stopped during those war periods. How did people get around if there were no stamps available for them to send a letter, to their loved ones?
It's not easy during hard times.
Of course.
During the wartime. Before the North Expedition, actually, many provinces, they issue their own postage stamps.
So there wasn't a centralized, the authority.
Even though there's one, but, it's a very complex.
Of course.
Yes. And after Chiang Kai-shek unified China, so the whole postal service come back, and they issued the postage stamps after 1928 until the Japanese or Sino-Japanese War. After that, it's quite, it's a mess.
Okay.
So they just reprint all the postage stamps which were already stocked in the warehouse.
Okay.
So they just reprinted with different denominations.
Okay. But how about during the Civil War between the Kuomintang and also the Chinese Communist Party?
Yes.
How about those period? Were there stamps available?
In the Chinese communists, they control certain liberated areas,
yes.
解放区, and they start to issue postage stamps since 1930.
Okay.
And they have their own postal system, although it's very shabby. It's not really,
Okay.
But the nationalists, they release their own postage stamps. But, because of the war, they have to, the same, they reprint all the old ones, old images. These images include revolutionary heroes or Sun Yat-sen. Most of them are Sun Yat-sen, so it's like many different editions, many versions of this.
But that was a very difficult period of political instability, so that's why the postal stamps suffer as a consequence. I want to thank Dr. Huang for giving us that overview of stamp collection and also postage story in the Republic of China. And we're going to take a short break on the program, and when we come back, we're going to talk with Dr. Huang about the postal development in Taiwan. I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to our program here on the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Rui Guo. Well, we'll continue our conversation with Professor Huang Youqing, who is an assistant professor of art history at the Tainan National University of the Arts. Dr. Huang, I want to ask you that when we look at the postal stamps in the Republic of China, we have to look at 1949 as a watershed year in the sense that that was the period when the civil war between the Chinese communists and also the nationalists, came to an end, and the nationalist government under former President Chiang Kai-shek moved to Taiwan. And since 1949, of course, our postal service was later restored, and stamps were issued successively. And you also did your PhD dissertation on that. And can you tell us that who were some of the figures that appear on the ROC stamps since 1949, including politicians or people in other areas?
After 1949, most of the figures on postage stamps
still political figures.
Political figures.
Okay.
Sun Yat-sen would be the most, appeared.
Most often, yes.
Most often, yes. And second one, Chiang Kai-shek.
Of course.
And since the nationalists have to construct a national history on postage stamps, so as you can see from the Shang dynasty, from the, all the Chinese different dynasties, the first emperor of each dynasty, they will be shown on postage stamps.
Of course.
And the revolutionary heroes in the, against the Qing dynasty. All these figures.
All right.
So most of them would be shown, to construct the national history.
Okay.
And on the other hand, besides political figures, there would be cultural artifacts.
All right.
So National Palace Museum, all the artifacts in this place would be, chosen to show the cultural, the legitimacy, the heritage of the China. Of China, yes.
Okay. And the fact is, when we look at, people's daily lives, there are probably two things that we use most often. One is, of course, money, currency. The other one is, of course, postal stamps. Naturally, today, maybe people don't use postal stamps as much. because of the electronic evolution, information technology available makes sending a letter not the most convenient way of doing things. But anyway, given the fact that currency and stamps are two of the most often used items in people's daily lives, but when we compare the two, it's often the stamps that will present the national image, to not just people in the country, but all across the world. Why is it?
It's all about the issuing frequency.
Okay.
I mean, the designer, they don't have to, redesign banknotes every 2 weeks.
All right.
Because postage stamps are released every 2 weeks. So you can get like 30 sets of postage stamps every year.
Okay.
Just for one country.
Okay.
So you can imagine that. So postage stamps can reflect or they can respond to the current issues of the people's daily life, but not banknotes.
Yes.
They're always, political leaders.
Of course.
It didn't change until year 2000, I think.
Yes, when we had the little children.
Yes, and endangered animals,
yes,
or the baseball, the national sports.
Yeah, pastime. Okay.
Yes.
But let me ask you though, when we look at postal stamps, we often look at the different denomination, like $5, $10, or whatever. Are there other different ways of categorizing the stamps available, not just in terms of monetary denomination?
It's about you can categorize them by, for example, there are many types of postage stamps.
Yes.
It depends on the how often did you use it. Such as definitive or regular postage stamps is for everyday use.
Yes.
You can use these postage stamps, but all these images are very dull.
Okay.
And they use the same image, such as national flag or national flower, plum, with different colors. But the images are the same. The design, they all look the same.
Yeah, interestingly, Dr. Huang, you mentioned that maybe every 2 weeks that we'll have a new design for postal stamps. How is the process work? I mean, the government agency that's in charge of postal issuing, is the Ministry of Transportation and Communication, right? How does the process work? Can you just briefly explain for us?
10 officials. I mean, the process changed many
Each
times.
time. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But in late 1990s, 10 to 12 officials in the General Directorate of Posts, 邮政总局, they decide which subject to be, chosen and to be designed. Officials. So people around Taiwan, they can, just write letters and recommend their own ideal or dream subject to the General Director of Posts. But they, every month they will receive 50 different subjects sent by, ordinary people. They think their, the park or their university or their elementary school are very important. So they want this to be, printed on postage stamps. So these 10 to 12 officials, they have to decide which subject would be chosen.
And how do you then become, somebody who's more on a regular basis as a stamp designer? For example, you send it in today, maybe they like it, they use it, but you send another design in, a month later, maybe they don't like it. But would there, any criteria for people maybe to become more of a regular stamp designer for our country?
Actually, the General Directorate, GDP, of Posts, they hired, permanent painter in their office. But they just, their workload, their loading is too heavy. They have to paint it's a world record almost. They have to paint, 100 to 200 sets of postage stamps in whole their life. And it's incredible. I mean, in other countries, in Western countries, they don't do that.
No.
So now they call for designs from the internet. So if you want, you can try. I mean, you can try. I mean, the pay is very high.
Okay, but the fact of the matter is, when you design something and when you're on the permanent staff for the general post, you know, and then you also contributing your design as part of the the next issue of postal stamps in Taiwan. But how about people who freelancers that supply the design? How would they evaluate it? How, I mean, just out of the 10 to 12 people, would they actually vote on the design and see which one is better over the others? Well, I mean, do they go by subgroups and decide, which ones to take?
It's kind of inside stories.
Yes, if you have any information on that.
I mean, they contact with certain designers.
All right.
And those people are so-called environmental painters, environmentalist painters.
All right.
And they paint the birds or the sea, creatures, animals, everything.
Okay.
And actually the levels, I mean, all these images are just too different.
All right.
Professional designers would be much preferred by the general director of posts. You
and I both, when we were little, were stamp collectors.
Yes.
But I don't think we did it at the time for the reason of investment. But how is the market today in Taiwan for stamp collection?
It's not like 20 years ago. I mean, it's getting down.
Because?
Because of, actually you can compare stocks and postage stamps.
Okay.
Because before stocks market became, popular, people just invest their money on postage stamps. But after 1990s, so people, shift their interest to stock markets. And, the postage stamps became less interested.
Yeah, so there isn't so much of an investment interest into the market. But let me ask you, do you know of any, stamps that are more valuable on the market today? I mean, what are the criteria for evaluating that? I mean, of course, the year, the design, maybe the figure or the rarity of the stamps. Are these the primary considerations?
Still, these, rarity or wrongly print.
Okay, or wrongly printed.
Okay. Yes, upside down or with different, the double image.
Okay.
It's totally awful, actually, in the standard of aesthetic standard.
Okay.
But investors like these, because they are rare.
Okay.
So rarity is still the most, criteria we can.
All right. Finally, for this part of the program, how is the world market, for stamp collecting?
Now we can see only in auction.
Auction. Okay. And that's for very
few people.
Okay.
So the normal philatelic market are, not really popular.
It's not very attractive.
No.
Okay, and the market is getting smaller.
Smaller.
Okay, and the interest is declining.
Yes.
Okay. All right. But anyway, we're going to take another short break on our program, and when we come back, we will continue our conversation with Dr. Huang, and we will talk about the kinds of things that you can tell about the country's development through postal stamps. I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to our program on the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Ray Guo. We will continue our conversation with Professor Huang Youqing from the Tainan National University of the Arts. And he's going to talk to us about the kinds of things that we can discover from postal stamps about a country's history, people, and its culture. Dr. Huang, we talk about, the kinds of things that you can see from the postal design, from the year issued, from the figure, the political figure, or whoever is on the postal stamp about the country's history. And over the years, since the nationalist government came to Taiwan, we have seen a lot of the different political figures and some of the events, or like you said, rare animals and the environmental concerns or contemporary issues that are being printed on postal stamps. Overall, what is, as a scholar expert, what is your perspective on the development of our country since 1949 that you can see, you can observe through the issues of postal stamps?
It's about politics, actually.
It's primarily, you think, political.
Yes, and national identity, ideology. So there, you can choose 5 ways to look at these postage stamps.
Okay.
There are political identity,
all right,
cultural identity, geographical identity.
All right.
So you can see how the first postage stamp since 1949, the first political figure, actually historical figure, is Zheng Chenggong.
Yes.
So why did the nationalist government chose him as the main figure?
Yes.
Because he's like, you can compare his situation in the Ming Dynasty, late Ming Dynasty, because Zheng he took Taiwan as the counter attack base.
Okay.
So he's like the figure Chiang Kai-shek he's familiar with. So other postage stamps like cultural identity.
Okay.
All these National Palace Museum staff were there.
Of course.
And they were again and again shown on the postage stamps.
Okay. But let me ask you, besides figures, besides people, what were some of the major events that were included as part of the postal stamps? For example, the 1987 when we lifted martial law, was that included in the consideration? Or, for example, things that happened recently regarding the first election, directly elected president, in 1996 in Taiwan. Those are the events that were also included in the design of postal stamps.
Major events in the 1970s, you can see, because the Republic of China, they face setbacks in the diplomatic field.
Of course.
1971, 1970,
Two, and three.
The United Nations.
Yeah, of course.
The ROC was the Chinese seats were taken by the People's Republic of China, and in 1979, the Chinese, the ROC and the American, their diplomatic relation
was severed.
Yes. So you can see many postage stamps like 庄敬自强, self-reliant and be strong.
Okay.
Such this image postage stamp reflect a time when ROC faced very difficult diplomatic relations with other countries.
Okay.
And actually, the martial law didn't, it's not mentioned in the postage stamp.
Okay.
But in 1996, when the first president elected by the people, so the postage stamps of Li Denghui and Lian Zhan were shown on the postage stamp.
Yeah, when we look at the ROC, postal stamps,
Yes.
we can always see the Zhonghua design, the words on it. When did that first appear? Did that appear only after 1949?
No, actually,
That started from the very beginning?
1912.
Okay.
1912.
Right. So it's always, Zhonghua.
Always Zhonghua or Republic of China postage stamps.
Okay.
Like 中华民国邮票.
Okay, all right.
But after 1949, People's Republic of China, they want to use the same name, the same title. So first they use 中华邮政, but they also change. Now they use 中国邮政, China Post.
Okay.
So the Republic of China, we don't have the space to to compete with them.
No.
So that's why in 2007,
Yes.
the DPP,
Yes.
They use a new national title, but only 1 year.
Okay.
They use Taiwan Post, 台湾邮票.
Okay.
台湾邮政, yes.
Okay. So for the postal stamps that were issued in that 1 year, does that become part of a rare stamps collection in the market today?
People do collect postage stamps at that time because they think, well, it won't last. So they collect it as much as we can.
Okay. And how often, in your memory and your research and studies, how often does a country actually change the name on its postal stamp when the political system stays the same?
I mean,
you know, we did it back in 2007, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Any other countries have done it, you know, in the past that you can, you know, recall?
I think in African countries, they changed their name from, you know, maybe earlier they used the French national title, national title in French, but later they will use national title in English because now it's, you know, the world is dominated, or academic circle anyway.
Yes.
You have to write or communicate with English. So they will change, but it doesn't really often, as we can see the national title change in. But think about this. I mean, in 1970s, we were no longer, you know, we no longer have a seat in the United Nations.
Yes.
So, I mean, theoretically, we shouldn't use Republic of China or China, but we still use it. I mean, the International Postal Union, they don't really care about the national title. So don't worry, you can change into like China Cooperation Post. Nobody cares, really.
So there isn't that, you know, zero-sum mentality between China and Taiwan.
As long as you are a political identity, you will be accepted, and you can still send mails around the world.
But let me ask you, though, in your research and, you know, studies, that you look at the postal history of the Republic of China. And then, of course, in, you know, ever since the lifting of martial law, our country has become more, you know, pluralistic, and there's a lot more open and democratic. And now we have a lot more, you know, figures, popular figures, you know, including artists, you know, entertainers, and, you know, can be on the, you know, national stamps. And is that the general trend around the world, moving away from less on political ideology, on politicians, and more on the contemporary events and concerns among the people? Is that the trend?
I think, yes, on the one hand, it's a trend. Because in 2007, we have Harry Potter.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Globalization, you know, the theme is not exclusively from Chinese people or Taiwanese people, whatever. On the other hand, I mean, after 1996, the so-called localization or 本土化 or regionalization, it did bring new subjects to the postage stamp design, such Aboriginal people, Aboriginal dance, or before late 1990s, we don't see any Taiwanese painters' works or their images on postage stamps. It's all about National Palace Museum. But after that, we did have, you know, Cheng Chenbo, famous painters of course, you know, legend of Taiwanese painters. So after 2000, this trend became more obvious. We can have more local subjects. But people might get wrong that the DPP, they get rid of all these Chinese subjects. No, actually, they still print images of the National Palace Museum. Yes.
And finally, I understand that maybe we're sort of like a latecomer to this, but now we can have our personalized postal stamps. And this only happened back in, what, 2000 and, you know, something. I forgot what exactly what year it was. Do you think that's, you know, something that's going to become even more popular, you know, in the future? Because now people use postal service a little less because you can send emails and other means.
Yeah.
But since it's becoming such a less frequent means of communication, you can now personalize yourself, personalize your stamps. Would you think that's becoming a way of attracting more people coming back to postal service?
Australia was the first country to issue
to do that.
Personalized, yes.
Okay.
And after that, many countries just follow their steps.
Yes.
Yeah. But actually, your own personal figure are not on the official design postage stamps.
No,
you just added, you just accompany with the
official design.
Official design.
Okay.
So many enterprises in the world, they print or they use this way to promote their
corporate image.
Yes.
Okay.
CI, corporate image.
Okay, yes.
Well, this became a new trend of, I don't really think so.
Yeah, we'll probably have to wait and see.
Yes.
Yeah, see how people respond, especially in this day and age when you talk about email, you talk about Facebook.
Yeah.
A lot of people probably rely on those means a lot more. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take our final break on the program today, and when we come back, we will continue this conversation with Dr. Huang, and we're going to talk about the future. We're going to talk about the kinds of things that we can learn from the postal stamps and from how they design and issue in the future. I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to the final part of today's program here on the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Rick Wu. We will continue our conversation with Dr. Huang Youqing, who is an assistant professor of art history at the Tainan National University of the Arts. Dr. Huang, we know that this day and age is the electronic age, is the information revolution. Email, Facebook, whether through your cell phone or your notepad or iPad or whatever, is becoming almost indispensable for a lot of people. Therefore, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of people now write less and less letters or use postal service to send a message or send a product. Given the fact that we will continue to see more people relying on the electronic age, electronic transmission of message and other things, do you think, as an expert in this area, do you think that stamps maybe in the future will become less and less functional and therefore less and less important as a way of presenting a country's image or representing a particular message of the time?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Unfortunately,
I don't think optimistic to see the future of postage stamps. But think about when we travel to another country, we send postcards back to our, to our friends, and so postage stamps still can reflect the country's image.
Okay.
It still has its importance.
Okay.
And you cannot just write an email and talk to your friend. Now I'm in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Who knows?
Okay.
You have to prove.
All right.
So postcard and postage stamps still can as an evidence you've ever been there.
Okay.
So maybe we can try to write love letters to your
loved ones.
To your loved ones.
Yes. Okay. And I agree with you. I don't think, for example, people talk about, the last year was the year one of the age of electronic books. Yeah. But I don't think paper books will ever disappear completely. It's the same thing with stamps.
I think it's the same.
Maybe people use a little less. We send a little, fewer letters, and we use postal office a little less often. But I don't think postal stamps will completely go out and disappear. Given the fact that people not paying so much attention to postal stamps now. However, ironically, when you look at stamps exhibitions around Asia, they're always crowded. There's so many people will attend. You know, I mean, same thing happening in Taipei. You know, when we have an international postal exhibition, you know, a lot of people would, you know, buy a ticket to get in and then, you know, look at the stamps, other, you know, the relevant, you know, materials from other countries. Why is it? You know, I mean, since people now rely more on cell phones and emails and other things, why is it still so much, you know, interest in postal stamps?
I mean, stamp collecting is still the healthy hobby.
Okay.
I mean, parents would encourage their kids to collect postage stamp.
Okay.
And, you know, it's an educational space. Yeah. So people can learn things from these tiny, tiny images. So it's still educational.
Okay.
On the other hand, you know, all these images are particularly designed. It's beautiful. And people collect, such as Harry Potter, again. Yeah. You know, foreign collectors, they have to come across the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean and to Taiwan to collect such. You know, maybe they can order from the email, but they still now it became the major income for most countries.
Okay.
Not for, you know, national identity building or.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And would you think that, you know, stamp exhibitions can also play a role in the future in terms of, for example, attracting more tourists? You know, maybe now, you know, we have mainland tourists coming into Taiwan, you know, over the last 2 years. And hopefully sometime this year, we're going to have the individual Chinese tourists coming to Taiwan instead of being a group of 5 people. Yeah. And would you think that, you know, stamp collection can be part of the tour, or stamp exhibitions can be a reason for individual travelers from China, other parts of the world to come to Taiwan? Do you think that can be part of the tourist attractions?
Yes, I think it will be a tourist attraction.
Okay.
But, well, it's not like other tourist spots, like Sun Moon Lake, but still many people who are interested in history or in, especially, you know, mainland China, mainlander. They didn't know about Taiwan for the past 50 years. They have to see something which can, you know, show the complete history. Okay. And it's all in the postage stamps.
Okay. And also the fact of the matter is, I understand, Dr. Huang, one of your specialties is the relationship between politics and stamps.
Yes.
And then you know, over the course of our program today, you talk, you know, a lot about, you know, postal stamps are often used to send a political message, you know, to present the country's image, maybe even ideology. Would you think that, you know, as far as you can see, you know, as Taiwan becoming more democratic, our, you know, political system more institutionalized, would you think something like this will be less and less, and it will be, you know, postal designs will be more on, you know, issues and other non-political figures who have made a difference in our life?
Yes, I think the subjects of, you know,
postal design,
or the subjects are neutral, become more neutral.
Good. Yeah.
But, you know, in People's Republic of China, I mean, before 1980, they don't release any postage stamps concerning Chinese history.
Okay.
They're concerned about the modern communist history.
Okay.
But after 1980s, they choose, you know, they use another way to persuade the world that they cared about the Chinese, you know, the past thousands of, you know, artifacts or the events. So maybe for the, you know, People's Republic of China, it's time now to include Taiwan as part of their history.
Okay.
So it's, I mean, it's quite a sensitive issue.
Yes. But Professor Huang, we also know that, you know, issues of, you know, postage stamps can really be a major source of income for many countries.
Yes.
For example, the Holy See.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening for Taiwan in the future? I of course, don't have the figures. You know, what's the annual sales of you know, postal stamps in Taiwan? But do you think that maybe with a wider selection of subject that can be designed on the stamps, and also our postal offices around the island are also becoming more diversified. We now have postal offices, making, sales on a number of different products that are not related, to postal service. Do you think that can be a major source of our national income for the government in the future? And if we have, more tourists coming in, buying more, postal stamps, certainly that will help the government revenues. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree. I think postage stamps and tourism should be, put together. Just like the Holy See is a very good example. We should, just follow their steps. And concentrate on, the tourist enterprise. And making, these postage stamps as part of a creative subjects. Cultural creative subjects. Good
that you should mention about cultural creativity, because I think now we're becoming more integrated regionally and internationally, and people talk about Taiwan's soft power, and cultural creativity is one of it. Do you think that somehow we can unleash and release that energy, that creativity that we have in the society, and put that somewhat directly into the design of postal stamps, and maybe making our postal stamp market even more diversified, even more vibrant? Do you think that's a plausible suggestion?
Still, in the globalization, it's two extremes: globalization and localization.
Yes.
So people always, it's a huge debate nowadays.
It's a tug of war.
Yes, it's a tug of war.
Back and forth.
So which way should we choose? But I think the best way is not globalization. I mean, Harry Potter is okay, but what does it to do with Taiwanese people? I mean, it's a global phenomenon, but it's not part of our life.
No.
It's not in our blood or in our, So I think we should try to trace our, former influence. Like the ancient culture, or of course not in the old way to represent these images, but still, we should choose to the right way.
Finally, for the 1 minute that we have left on the program, of all the subject matter that you have seen that have been included in stamp design, what was one or two that you think is still missing that you would like to see them included in the design of stamps in Taiwan?
That would be pure design. I mean,
pure.
Always we concentrate on subjects. But the modern or abstract, the more designer's design, it's not shown on postage stamps. Because people are still more familiar with a figure they can identify, or they understand. But abstract, like the North European design, is really high standard. So maybe we should learn from them.
Yes, we certainly learned a lot from conversation with you today, Dr. Huang. Certainly want to wish you all the best in the new year, and also in all of your personal and professional endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching our program today. I'll see you next time on Macroview Television. Thank you, and bye-bye.